All right, geographers, we're continuing through this unit, and this section is on the second agricultural revolution, not to be confused with the first one. All right, so the first one is really civilizations becoming like a thing. The second one is something you should have gone over in world history. So, once again, this is more historical in this video, not so much. I'm not going to be showing you current events or news clips. If you need to go over more historical things, I can do that with you. So let's look at the origins of the second agricultural revolution. And we can go back to jolly old England, well, actually Great Britain as a whole. And remember, we should know the difference between the UK, Great Britain, the British Isles, all those things. England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland. But it began in the 18th century, or around the mid 18th century, depending. That's the 1700s. All right. Actually, a little bit early. It happened in the 1700s. All right. Remember, this connects to the Industrial Revolution. You should have learned about that. As farmers are making more food, as machinery required less people to make the food, you had more people living into adulthood and longer lives because they had more food to eat. So we're somewhat healthier. And then you needed less people to work on the farm. So all these people needed jobs. So many of them began with factory work, um, moving away from the countries into the cities, and then becoming these polluted things where people were getting diseases. That's another part of the Industrial Revolution. Right? Know the role of the location. Why did it start here? Well, look, it's an island nation. It's surrounded by water. So that's good for transportation to both get things in to make stuff with and also to send things out. But the climate in this area is really good. It's damp. It's good for growing things like cotton. Also, nowhere in England is anyone more than 20 miles from water. There's lots of rivers. So, Saudi Arabia, for example, has no rivers, right? And it's surrounded by salt water. So that's not really good for irrigation, but it's good to grow crops here, right? Also, all right, they had a powerful navy. Does that fit in with why? Well, it helped them gain power so they can get more colonies. And those colonies helped because then they had more resources. England and Scotland, Wales, they weren't covered in woods. You've learned about Sherwood Forest and Robin Hood. Those trees got quickly cut down, right? So they needed to go get resources everywhere else besides just trees, right? They were able to get more cotton than they could produce, right? We know how they would take goods from Americas, then make them in their factories, and then be like, "Hey, Americas, you can only buy from us, and we're going to tax you." Like, but the resources came from us, right? Very, very wonderful scheme they had planned there. So you can get resources from other countries, specifically its colonies. Uh, Once again, coal helped because think of steam power and the factories. Because of the colonies, they also had ports worldwide, which was really good for both exporting and importing. And with all these colonies, they needed to produce, right? So it was just the perfect, everything was just perfect for it to start, from the climate to the workers to everything. If you want to know more about why it began here, I actually had a video which has thousands of hits, thousands of views, people, from when I taught world history. So I'll put those in the notes. If you need more of a refresher on why it started here, you were absent that day, your freshman year, go back and give that a look. And it features some of this is the one. It features some of my famous stick figures, which I really haven't shared with you guys. If there's a demand, I will include stick figures in your videos in the future. All right, let's talk though about the second agricultural revolution and agricultural advancement. Now that you had machineries and more things, how is this changing? So the first thing we're going to talk about, and once again, I'm going to mention a few different technologies. You need to remember the details in all these, but just be able to know in general, say it's an FRQ, like how did technology impact or cause, parts of this second agricultural revolution, and what were its impacts? That's the kind of thing you should know. Here is the steel plow. We had a steel plow Um, the wood's sort of rotting out now, but there's still the blades still exist. But a steel plow can cut through roots. So if you're going through grasslands, think of the different zones we talked about, or any area with plants. Really, you ever try to like, if you're ever weeding, you ever try to pull out roots, even if you got like a tool, a hand tool, it's not easy. The steel plow really helped it, and it helped clear land more quickly. It was usually pulled by oxen or a horse. Now, today, there's like, look at all those discs on that steel plow today. So today, it could do so um, more area more quickly. All right. So another example would be the reaper or harvester. This was the McCormick reaper or harvester, which became common used for in the agricultural world during the second agricultural revolution. So think it reaps or harvest. You used to use like a sickle, like you on a stick and cut it down, or even your hands. That would take a long time. Probably also be painful, right? But the McCormick harvester, it could bring in a lot more grain at one time. It could clear about 15 acres a day, depending on what exact grain it was harvesting, the weather, the soil, some small factors, but about 15 a day. This is a harvester today. This is the John Deere S7 combine. This goes for about $600,000. All right, it has 5 internal engine settings in case you're interested in buying one. But think of how technology impacts this machinery today. It inside you can use satellite maps to help determine like where you should be harvesting at what time, how tall are things are getting at one time. It has live automation settings. It gives you like live camera feedback, right? So think how the technology is continuing to make advancements. This can clear about 1.5 acres an hour, right? So about 15 acres a day, about 1.5 an hour, and you're working sun up till sundown. So if you had to do this by hand, or think about the days it would cost, right? Um, Usually they'd say about 3 days an acre or something like that. So just think of that difference. All right, let's look at the seed drill. Just like that, instead of like having to dig in each individual holes to plant seeds, you may have heard of people used to use like their toes to make little holes for the seeds. This now drills seeds in. So it gave a revolutionary ability to plant more at once. Today's advancements, it even can tell you like when and where to plant using, sensing things with moisture and soil pH and all sorts of things. This is the N530 John Deere. This is so much more affordable than what I last showed you. It's only a bit over $200,000, but same thing. Look how many seeds it can plant at a time. And this is an example. This is actually from the brochure from that machine that shows you some of the technologies. So some of them is just aiding the comfort of the farmer. Trust me, back in the day, they were not worried about farmer comfort. You just sort of sucked it up, and it was not fun. Um, but also, you can see all the different things that you can calibrate and help give you the best numbers possible, right? Because what do farmers want? They want to have good production to make as much money as possible. Because think of all the money they're investing in the land, in the machines, workers, so on and so forth. Last example is grain elevators. This is a modern example. There were more like wooden ones back in the past during the beginning of the second agricultural revolution. But this helped you to be able to store more grains in case you needed some, because you were going to ship some further, or so you had things for your off season, or because you had just a surplus, because some years you may not have a surplus, or what if there's a drought or something, right? Keep in mind, you're also feeding your animals, not just your humans, all part of the agricultural revolution, right? What is the big deal about this? All of this impacts food production, right? Food production impacts people's lives, your health, how long you're going to live, right? Also, just your variety in your life, and it impacts your culture. It also impacts labor, right? If you're not needed on the farm and you can work in other areas like factories or the service sector or today in the, IT sectors or all the many sectors there are today. Um, this, really starting by 1850 in Europe, you see like a steady incline in food production, but then 1850 to now, it's like a huge rise. This is just another impact. It shows you this is just from the past few decades, but how many more calories we're taking in across the world. Not necessarily a good thing. It might be in some areas that were insufficient in their calorie intake. I think we're doing okay, right? So, all things to think about. Right, short video. Hope you learned a thing or two. Let me know if you want some stick figures and Farm New Jersey, my friends.